This is my granddaughter. Her name is AJ. She's 6 years old in this picture. She's all dressed up on Halloween to be Elsa. Elsa from Frozen. That's her favorite character. And as a grandmother, I take a lot of pride in her, and I spend as much time as I can with her. And one of the things that I'll do sometimes is get off work early and go pick her up at her after-school program. She's in first grade right now. And so I went and did that back in October around this time frame. And when I arrived about 3 o'clock, the teacher, the caregiver of the after-school program, had all the kids sitting on the floor with their legs crossed. And she was asking them a question. And the boys started shouting out answers. But what did all the girls do? They raised their hands. And so the teacher was acknowledging the little boys' answers. Oh, that's great, Joey. Oh, thank you, Mike. And AJ sees this happening, and she puts her hand down and shouts out her answer. And the teacher or the caregiver said, AJ, you have to raise your hand. So we're going to get back to this story in a little bit, but just keep that in your mind as we move forward with my presentation. Next slide. Okay, the current state of DEI. A lot of controversy right now, and there's really two sides to this, to oversimplify it. There are those who feel that people who deserve to get promoted and hired are not getting promoted and hired. And then there's the other side that believes people who don't deserve to be promoted and hired are getting promoted and hired. And truth be told, there's truth on both sides and a lot of middle ground, right? But this is the fight. And so now we have a turnover in government, and our president and Elon Musk and a few others decide we're cutting diversity funding. We're cutting out our programs for DEI. And you start to see all these, Tanya, can you get me some water? And you start to see these companies dumping their DEI programs. Next slide. I want to make sure that you guys understand that DEI encompasses a lot. And I'm not an expert in all these top areas, the ethnicity, the religion, the abilities or disabilities, sexual orientation, political perspective, and background. Today we're going to talk about gender because that's what I know about. So what I say may or may not be true for other categories, thank you, of diversity, but today we're going to focus on gender. Next slide. So what I'm going to share with you today is a little tiny snippet of our Women Rising Leadership Academy. There are several women in the academy here today. Would you raise your hands? Thank you for being here. Yay. One of the most impactful workshops that we have, that is a 2.5-hour workshop, is on cultural differences between males and females. We're literally living in two different worlds, and most of the time we don't know it. I don't know if many of you may have heard of a book, who are older like me, of Men Are From Mars, Women Are From Venus, but it has been a long time since people really paid attention to this issue, and yet it still impacts us every day. Oh, I don't need the clicker. So we're going to be focusing on this, and again, this is like 3% of what we're teaching the women in our Women Rising Leadership Academy. Next slide. One thing I want to do is acknowledge our funders. When our federal government said that they were going to be cutting programming and DEI funding, a lot of companies started saying they were dumping their DEI programs. That didn't happen with our funders. In fact, since that's happened, we've got 2 new funders. Both of them are here, Lander Chiropractic and Republic Services, back here in the back. We also had 4 different companies increase their contribution: Edison, Sully Miller, Amazon, and Chevron. So there's plenty of companies that aren't dumping their programs, and those happen to be the companies that have diversity at their core. And the reason they have diversity values at their core is because they realize it's a business strategy. So what I'm going to do today is share with you some information about women in the workforce, and then I'm going to try to show you the business aspects of this. Next slide. So here's why I sort of don't care that DEI is being cut. In California, we've had a law on pay equity since 1949. And in the United States, we've had one since 1963 that Kennedy initiated. And in the United States, women are paid 83 cents for every dollar a man makes. In California, it's 81. So in a state that purports to be this great place for anybody of diversity, we're performing worse than the nation for women in pay equity. But here's what's important to look at. So women are 50% of the population. That's this first data point. And by the way, everything I'm going to show you today is based on data and research. None of this is my opinion. Everything that we teach the women in the Women Rising Leadership Academy is based on data, research, and science. So women are 50% of the population, 57% of college graduates, 51% of the workforce, and then we take a nosedive when it hits leadership. So does anybody find that odd? Like, how is it that we can be 57% of college graduation and not be able to lead organizations? It doesn't make sense, right? You got to think something's going on there. I think, my opinion is that this is an even playing field. And once we hit the workforce, it's not. And that's not necessarily anybody's fault, but a lot of it has to do with gender culture. So I'll show you that. Next slide. We need to talk about standards in order to have this conversation. And I really love this video. So if you want to go ahead and click the next slide, let's listen to this video.
And the thing up there, the backboard, the rim, the net, everything, we call that the basketball standard. Why do we call it a standard? Because that rim is exactly 10 feet high. So we call it a standard. It doesn't move. Now, can you imagine some NBA coach calling up the Delta Center and saying, "Hi, I'm Coach Jones from the Siler City Slackers, and we were just wondering if you could lower the standards a little bit for our game. I mean, you're just asking too much of us. 10 feet's just too high. You know, this is a hard thing that you have required of us. Could you just lower the standards a little bit? You're just asking too much of us." Can you imagine such a phone call? And if they did such a thing, it would mess everything up. And we couldn't call them basketball standards anymore. We'd have to call them basketball variables.
So why I like that is he lays out the two sides of the spectrum that I think women experience. So we have the standard. We saw in college, when women have the same standard as men, they can achieve it. And then it becomes variable in the workforce. So let me show you how that pans out. I actually have another slide on standards. Okay, here we go. So this is another way to look at standards. We've all taken the eye test, right? You can't cheat on that. It's the same for everybody. And no matter what you're able to do on that chart, you're going to get a rating. It's the same whether you're male or female. When we get into the workforce, gender culture often gets confused with standards. It's not anybody's fault. It's an awareness thing. And my hope today is I give you a little bit more awareness so you start to see some things that maybe you didn't see before. Next slide. So here's our first data point. Again, all of this is based on research. And it's on a bell curve. So you all know what a bell curve is. When I go through these slides, some of you are going to say, well, that's not true for me, or that's not true for this person that I know, and that's exactly right. It's not true 100% of the time. But what's really important is the majority of the population will fall into these categories just below 70% of the time, and that's a lot. 68%, I think, is the exact number. So that's why it's important to be aware of these things. So research shows that most men make decisions pretty quickly and independently, whereas most women take time and they consult with others. So why would this be a problem? What we find when women hit the workforce, if they're reporting to a male boss, is sometimes they think because she does it like this, she can't make a decision. So what do we do in the Women Rising Leadership Academy? We teach them a tool to use with their boss. Go and tell them it's not, you're not going to say it's not that I can't make a decision. You're going to say, I'm going to make this decision, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to gather as much information as I can, because I want all the information that's relevant to this before I make my decision. It's a simple fix. And what we find with a lot of these issues is if women are armed with the right approach, they can overcome some of these barriers. So they just need to educate their boss. But what can we do as leaders? If we're organizational leaders, how can we come up with a standard? You measure them on the result. It doesn't matter how they get there, right? The question should be, the standard should be, what is the outcome? Have we met the goal that this decision was supposed to accomplish? That's how we get to an achievable standard that everybody can understand. Make sense? Yep. Meeting behavior. So, men think meetings are to confirm what has already been decided. Women think meetings are like to brainstorm and decide, right? Bandy things about. The problem with this is if your boss is a male, he's going to feel like you threw him under the bus with the surprises you threw at him during the meeting. And I actually think this is where men have the better practice than the women, and we do teach this in the Women Rising Leadership Academy, that this is a smart business practice. You know, I don't go into a board meeting in my career. I learned this very early on in my career, and I learned it from a man. You don't go into any meeting where you're asking for a vote or a decision where you're not pretty sure what the outcome's going to be, right? That's because I do my homework. I meet with people ahead of time. I always know who's going to call me ahead of time to talk about something that we're going to be deciding, right? So we teach the women to do that. Sometimes these meetings happen in places where the women aren't. So I'm going to share a book with you later. The woman who wrote it was talking about how she was part of a team that was 3 men and herself. And they were walking down the hall discussing a very important point. And the 3 men, as they were talking, ducked into the bathroom. And in her mind, she was like, oh my gosh, this is a great way for me to be left out of this discussion that's going to continue in the bathroom. So what did she do? She went in the restroom with them. And of course, they were all shocked, but it was an opportunity for her to say, listen, you guys are going to continue to have this conversation, and I'm an important part of it. She took the opportunity to educate the men she was with, and I think they probably got it. I mean, aren't most people have good intentions? I don't know many men that want to hurt women out there, right? This is literally a cultural difference that's invisible to us until we understand it. You can't manage what you don't understand, right? If you're an organizational leader, though, you can create a standard. So if you're going to have a meeting, decide what the purpose of it is. Let everybody know how they can best prepare for it. Because remember, going back to the college graph, 57%, if we know the standard, we can meet it. So it's about creating an immovable standard that everybody can meet, and then have types of meetings. There are meetings where you want to come and brainstorm. When we have brainstorming meetings at the chamber, I still do a little pre-work, because I want to know what everybody else is thinking. So we teach them that, but there are ways to build standards around meeting behavior. Next slide. This is interesting because this is data from SHRM. So this is the Human Resource Organization for HR professionals. When companies are doing interviews, if they're interviewing a man, they tend to focus on potential. If they're interviewing a woman, they tend to focus on experience. And I don't think it's too hard to understand that one is looking backward and one is looking forward. So when you're hiring, you're looking forward. You're looking at what can this person achieve for our organization. So what we teach the women in the Women Rising Leadership Academy is go ahead and answer the question about your experience, but then pivot and talk about your potential in that area. If they're not going to ask the question, you do it for them. And that's how they overcome that. But if you're in a leadership position, how can you create a standard? This one's pretty simple. Create standard questions in the hiring and promotion process that focus on both experience and potential and ask the same questions of everybody. It's pretty simple. It's a simple fix. Confidence equals competence. This is an area of conclusion or bias that I actually have done a lot of work on in myself, because when we're more aware of some of the judgments we're coming to, we can manage them better. Doesn't this guy look super awesome confident? Yeah. And most of us are going to judge that he is competent because he looks confident. The problem with that is that men are easily confident and tend to easily discuss their accomplishments, whereas women are not so confident, and humility keeps them from sharing their accomplishments a lot of times. I've also done a lot of work there. I'm sure that people here have heard me talk about my accomplishments. I'm working on that. People need to know what you can do. People need to know. So we teach women that confidence is a skill, not a personality trait. And then we teach them where it comes from. So I'm confident talking to you right now because I'm speaking from my values, because those don't change. So we run the women through a process where they establish their values, what they really want to be doing with their lives, how they want to contribute to their employer, and then they automatically become more confident. But as far as a standard goes, recognize as a leader that confidence and competence is a bias. Use metrics and results to measure competence. And I'd love to refer you to the book called Quiet. And that is a book about how the world's smartest people often don't say much and how to get them to talk. Next slide. Here's the last one. This is kind of a fun one. Men nod when they agree. And women nod just to acknowledge or to say, I hear you, I'm with you, I'm listening, I'm not ignoring you. The problem with that in a meeting of a mixed crowd of men and women is that the men will assume the woman is agreeing because she's nodding. And what that oftentimes does, absolutely fascinating, is it means if they weren't going to ask her in the first place, she's now just doubled down on they're really not going to ask her what she thinks because they think she agrees with them. So I have a friend that's in the C-suite of Ware Malcolm, huge design firm based here in Orange County, and she reports directly to the CEO. There's 2 women and 8 men on the executive team, and she said when she stopped nodding in their executive meetings, her whole life changed for the better. She said, suddenly, my boss wanted to know what I thought. They got a little worried, like they thought, oh my God, what happened to Ruth, you know? We need to know what she thinks, you know? And so she said it changed her life. And I really work on this because it is such a habit. It's like just, I don't even know I'm doing it. But it hurts women. So we teach women this. Create a standard that overcomes this by making sure everyone in meetings contribute. That's an easy thing for leaders to do. Make sure everyone contributes and everyone has a voice, whether or not they're nodding. Okay, so next slide. That's just a snippet of our program and the things we teach. There's many more data points that are fascinating and fun. And you know, it's not all great news for women. There are some things that we don't do very well. And I think the bottom line there is we can learn from each other. So leadership in a DEI, post-DEI world, and you got what I mean by that, our federal government not embracing this notion anymore, is that we can stay open and keep learning, just like you're doing today. We can teach people what we know, because it's sort of like once you have that car, you see it everywhere. Once you see this, you can't unsee it, and so you become more aware. Self-assess and self-correct, use your knowledge for good and create equitable environments. Pay an equal wage, I'm going to get into the economics of this in just a minute. And spread knowledge of economic factors. So what are the economic factors? In California, pay equity would eliminate 40% of poverty in California. You know, we all pay for our poverty, right, with our tax dollars, the entitlements that we pay for and stuff. If women were just paid an equitable wage equal to men, we could resolve 40% of poverty in California. It would also increase California's economy by $68 billion a year. Why is that? Because women are the primary spenders in families, right? Gender diversity at the top creates more stable, efficient, and profitable companies. I'm going to get to some more information on that in a minute. And I think, you know, probably everyone in this room has many women they care about. And I think you could probably agree that when we leave 50% of the population behind, that's not going to serve any of us well. We pay the price in taxes and in social programs and in trying to continue to solve this problem. I'll tell you where this really hit me is when I found out that 60% of the California workforce are working moms. 60%. So think about if they were just paid an equal wage. Pretty impactful to think about. Anybody know who this is? Who is it?
Mr. Wonderful.
What?
Mr. Wonderful?
Yes, Mr. Wonderful, yes. Kevin O'Leary on Shark Tank. I'm addicted to Shark Tank. I watch a little bit of it probably almost every night for the last 12 years or whatever. This is a man that loves money. He's one of the world's richest men. He views business as actually a living, breathing thing. If you think about it, that's really true. A business has a number, almost like a social security number, just like we do. They call it an entity. And it does need to be fed and cultured and grown. So, for him, what does that is making sure it's making money. So he has been talking about for the last 6 years some research he's done internally in his private equity portfolio of which companies are making him the most money. And he found that there was one group that was targeting 30% growth and achieving 65% of their target. And then there was group 2 who was targeting 14% growth, but achieving it 95% of the time. So does anybody want to guess which group is which?
The men are group 1 and the women are group 2, right?
The women are group 2, yeah. So again, hold on before you let this offend you, because I have some good news in this. But this does show that some of our natural abilities are good for business, right? So what he did is he got all of his companies together and he shared with all of them, this is what the women leaders are doing that are growing their companies so successfully. And if we all do that, we'll all make more money. So they made a change. All of them started operating with more limited growth targets and achieving their goals. And this is what happened. They got a 2.5% increase in profits, which increased the portfolio from 15 billion to 17.5. Now, what Kevin probably doesn't know that I know is that those women could never have succeeded if they didn't also have some really strong male traits. Confidence, boldness, risk-taking, courage. They needed all of that, and these female strengths of a little bit of restraint, cautiousness, together. So if you're getting the picture here that I want you to get is that together we're a whole. We're an awesome team, males and females, and both are needed. And it's great if you can learn some of the skill sets that you don't have, but you can also put males and females together at the top and get great results. And he's proving this through his company. So the Women Rising Leadership Academy is not just about, oh, let's advance women. It's great for everybody. This is great for businesses as well. And so we did an impact survey last year, and this is what we found out. 39% of the women who graduated from the program earned a compensation increase. So that's really important when we're looking at the 81 cents on every dollar, right? 52% are taking more initiative at work, 58% receiving more positive feedback from their boss, 60% are more knowledgeable about their boss's priorities. We actually teach them to go and ask their boss what their priorities are, and then wrap your work every day around achieving that. Huge shift for a lot of people. 67% say their relationship with their boss has improved. Well, of course, look at what they're doing. 92% experience increased resilience, and 98% increased confidence. So when we're talking about that competence loop, that confidence piece is really important. And on this resilience, there's a lot of talk now about how our younger generations have a harder time in the workforce. They maybe break down a little bit easier. It's a little bit harder to give them feedback. This is really good news for our employers because we have all ages in the academy. And the younger ones improving their resilience is really going to help their companies. One other thing I forgot to say about Kevin O'Leary is he went one layer down on the onion as far as why the strategy for the women was working so much better, and it had to do with staff retention. I forgot to say this. Because the teams felt like they were always winning. So there wasn't a lot of turnover, so the companies were more stable. And as he puts it, it was like playing for Brady in football, right? They just kept winning and winning and winning, and it was fun to work there. So that was the second layer there that was really important. Okay. So if you want more resources on this, if I piqued your interest at all, this book, Hardball for Women, was written in the 80s. It still is relevant today as it was when it was written. It's been updated several times. I work remotely once a week on Mondays, and I look out my window, and the kids after school are playing exactly how this book says they will. This book is full of research. The research hasn't changed, but they do add as they update. It's fascinating. I read it in a weekend, and it changed my life. This book is by a woman, Allison Fergale, PhD. She's a professor in the Harvard Business School. And this book is about the double bind. Does anybody know what the double bind is? Okay, I'll share it with you. It is a woman can be likable and she can be competent, but rarely do we assess that she's both. And I'll give you an example. If a woman speaks very directly to her staff, people are likely to judge her as harsh and maybe not as competent of a leader because of that. However, if a man speaks directly to his staff, even the staff will respond this way. Oh, he's just being a great leader. So this book is her teaching women how to manage that, how to manage those perceptions. And then at the Women Rising Leadership Academy, we're just putting the finishing touches on a corporate training that sort of divulges all these cultural differences that leadership can be aware of so they can manage it and help their women succeed. And I guess the point I want to make there is, if you think about it, if women have this potential and yet it's not being utilized in the workforce, then I think businesses have to look at this as a huge untapped potential for their business, right? Huge untapped potential. Next slide. So I wanted to circle back to my granddaughter. The experience she had in her after-school program, she's going to have many of those experiences throughout her childhood and all growing up. So is it any wonder that women have some confidence issues? You know, I mean, I think it kind of makes sense when you understand what's sort of happening. And again, I'm going to go back to you. This teacher had no idea what they were, not even aware. And that's how a lot of this stuff happens. We're not even aware of it until we're aware of it. So I hope that, I'll leave you with this. I hope that I've inspired you in some way today to care a little bit more about the issue or to want to know more about it. I think leadership is about inspiring others. I hope that I've inspired you a little bit, and I hope that you go out and do the same. Thank you. It was the first time I did that. How'd I do? Does anybody have any questions? Yes.
So, for small businesses, I think it makes a lot of sense for a bigger business to be able to kind of enact this tomorrow. We're predominantly, my team is predominantly women. I'm actually the only male on staff. And our other founders are men, but everyone else is female. How do I disperse this to 3 employees? We're not big.
Yeah, well, your 3 employees can go through the Women Rising Leadership Academy, or we can do this other workshop for you.
And how much, I mean, I think it's, other people want to know, how much is it to send our employees to the Women Rising?
Yeah, so it's been free other than a small materials fee up until this year, but the demand has grown so much we will be charging. So our funders are offering a scholarship. So the cost, our cost is $1,000 per student. By the way, colleges charge like $6,000 for leadership programs for women, but that's our hard cost. And all of our funders have chipped away at that down to $275. So that's what it's going to cost them. We're going to do it on a payment plan, so it's like $29 a session over 8 months and affordable.
And when does the next one start?
The application process starts in June, and then we launch the new cohort in September.
Well, Daisy's one of my bosses, so I'll make sure she gets my people signed up.
Nice, nice. And by the way, I want to acknowledge too, we have an executive women's panel that's extremely successful, and the reason is because the women on the panel are the top executives of their organizations, and a lot of women leave that panel understanding that these women have gone through the same things that they are experiencing and still made it to the top. And one of those panelists is Brenda Leone, and everybody loves hearing from her. So thank you for always doing that for us. Really appreciate it.
Lacy, I would totally correlate with what you're saying. In the publication Lifestyle, every May we highlight women in business, women leaders, correlating with Mother's Day. In June we highlight men. And a couple years ago I did a thing with highlighting a ton of women in business, leaders, and everything else. I got 2,600 likes because women support women. It's a proven fact. On the June issue of men, I got 24. Men were in insecure to say this other guy is doing really good is not
Oh,
something we do.
interesting.
So women support women and women support men is a proven fact in the publication.
Interesting. Interesting. So I have a question for you guys. Was anybody offended by this?
It was really nice.
I would love feedback. Jatinder, were you offended?
No, I wasn't offended by it. No, not at all. It's not. That's not the question. What I grew up with was completely different from what we see over here.
Mm-hmm.
That in my family, based on our religion, Sikhs are different. Women and men are treated completely equally in the faith. And I grew up with that, so it was a shock to me when I moved to this country to see that women were not given the opportunities or the rewards that they got. Because I grew up with my mom and my aunts and others. If you look at 1950s, 40s, 50s in India, the women were considered property of men, and they were never allowed to go beyond. My parents and my aunts, and they were all so well educated. One of my aunts was a chancellor of a university. So, most of my cousins are all PhDs, and they got the top positions in every place. So it was, to me, it was a shock that a country like America would have this kind of thing when I grew up not even knowing these things. So,
Most
to
men
me,
that
it was
I know
this is
here,
an obvious thing.
I think, you think it's obvious? I don't think it's obvious. It wasn't obvious to me till I learned it. And men always promoted me. By the way, I started doing this work because women were not. I wanted to be that woman that was different. So, I'm married to a man. I love Ben.
We're okay.
But it's still, you're okay,
We're okay.
But yeah.
Necessary evil.
But it's interesting to delve into this work and start to see the things that we don't normally see. And the huge impact we can have with small tweaks. So,
Just
Yeah.
to follow up to that question, the United States has obviously made a lot of progress in 200 and something years, 250 years. And just in 100 years, we've made progress, right?
yeah, the last 30, 40 years have not been so great. So we kind of stalled out. COVID was horrible for women too.
So my question is there, which country or culture is doing it best? I don't know, who's doing it best? Who's the model? And who's doing it worst? And where are we in that spectrum? Are we at the top half or the bottom half? I'm curious.
I'm curious too.
Problem, huh?
I'm curious too. I actually don't know the answer to that question.
Go ahead.
Usually when I hear about other countries, it's usually way worse than here. I'm glad we live in a country where I can present this to you. So that's how I look at it. There's even parts of the United States that are better than others, right? We used to think California was so great for women. Turns out we're not as great as some other states. So,
I was going to say the Nordic countries.
Oh, okay.
So Iceland, Finland, Norway. Yeah, that's what I was thinking.
Okay. There's the answer. The Nordic countries. We'll have to go there and check them out. Yes.
So this is a little specific to us, but I think it's relevant for everyone. We currently are going through an early career individual who is a female, and she's gotten some feedback recently on her performance, and it was all like, no worries, we're going to work through this. But I could physically see that she was upset.
Yeah.
She was not happy. She wasn't getting feedback. This is her first 3 months of her career.
Yeah.
As leaders, how do we? I try to articulate like, no one's in trouble. We're going through this. It's all good. I don't think that landed. And so, how do we articulate those things as leaders better?
I appreciate the question. I'm going to be flat out honest with you. I think some of you know we had a big turnover of staff at the chamber. And I decided to outsource most of my positions. Daisy's my new COO. I was going to save this for later, but I'll do it now. Daisy's my new COO. And then Christina back there is helping with communications and events. And my only full-time employee is Tanya right back there, who has been around, knows her stuff, and is not a young one like that. And that was my decision because of the very thing you just said. I don't have any answers except for them to go through. I have determined that I'm not a good mentor when they work for me. I'm a good mentor when they don't, because I can say things that they can't take well from their boss. And that's what this program is all about. That's where that resilience is coming from, when they learn, no, it's not an attack, you're building job skill, right? So send her to WRLA. But yeah, that's a tough one. I hear it all the time. Like, Patty, talk about this? Yeah. Yes.
Is there, so my wife was the executive director for a, I don't want to give it away, but she worked for a female who was she was the executive director of this organization, law organization in Orange County, and they had a board of directors, and it was all women.
Uh-huh.
And it was they were, whenever they would talk about diversity, equity, and inclusion, they would all look around like, well, we're all women, led by a woman, and but the profession is predominantly male.
Mm-hmm.
But the board of directors was all women.
Mm-hmm.
And she would come home and she would talk to me about the conversations that they would have about how do we get more non-females to be a part of. Literally, they were like calling people.
Oh, interesting.
They were targeting men to be a part of the. And I just.
As well they should.
I go, it's interesting. I go, because like attract like, just naturally, right? Would a man want to sit on a board predominantly of women? Again,
Yeah.
and it's not a judgment, but it's like.
Yeah.
It's like, when you guys all go out to an event or a conference, is a man going to want to be, what man would want to be, what man would want to be the only man with pants?
At the nail salon? At the nail salon?
Right, or vice
For the
versa,
meeting,
or
before
vice
the meeting?
versa, or
Yeah.
vice versa. So
Yeah.
here's a group that was constantly aware of the diversity, and then there are natural, I would say, that's a natural. Now you can do something to kind of go against the grain of that, and is that kind of what this is taught? Like I think diversity, equity, and inclusion kind of was like I would say a mandated, but a fix for that. But then it feels artificial, and then you're choosing people that may or may not want to be there, and they probably know like the only reason why you're calling me to join the board is because I'm a man.
Yeah, and
or I'm a person.
I'm not a
They
firm
had
believer
issues
in
with
that.
Persons of color, where they were literally like looking at people's profile pictures.
Yeah.
To target like.
Yeah,
women,
and
this person like this
that's
on the
not
board.
at all what our program is about, or what I think diversity about. It's about diversity of thought. Like, what did we just go through here? The different ways that we approach things. And so if I were on that board, I'd be looking for people that thought differently than me, right? That's the important thing. More ideas, more solutions, to oversimplify it, right? And in the Kevin O'Leary idea, it's just two different approaches to the same thing. And you need it all. You need it all. So I'm not a fan of going for diversity by skin color or gender. I'm just simply trying to say what's happening in the workforce that's sort of holding women back, so we all have a little more awareness. But not picking out colors and genders just for the sake of.
But I guess the issue was like I think there are the people that are selecting, and then there are the people that are being selected, and there's like I said, I would go, well, would I want to be in that board, even if I was capable or had a desire? Is that something? So people select in or select out is what I'm saying. So you have there's the standards, and then there's the people and their likes and dislikes and their own proclivities about being a part of an organization. There's so what do you do with that, where it's like, because I would agree that's like they weren't necessarily looking to have an all-female board of directors. It just kind of worked out that way.
Yeah. Well, I mean, it doesn't distress me if it doesn't distress them.
Well,
There's plenty of all male boards.
About diversity and equity and inclusion, they were like,
Yeah.
oh, shoot, look, we're all one thing.
Yeah. Well.
You got me thinking now, is that why they made me president? Because mainly women there. Last night there were like 5 women and 2 men, and the man Joel just resigned, so I'm the only man left on the board.
Well, lucky you.
Well, I don't know about that.
Connie, you had a question?
Oh, yes. Yesterday I was actually having a conversation with someone about DEI in this very subject, and they said that the group that will suffer most now because of what's going on now is women.
Yeah.
What is your belief of that? And that was a man stating that.
Yeah, well, again, I'm going to go back to, I don't think government's had a huge impact on women's success. 50% of the population is being left behind. That's not good for anybody, right? Like, what would be the problem with making sure that the women that we love in our lives actually achieve parity with men. What would the problem in that be? To me, that's an honorable thing. I guess the point I was trying to make when I closed out is it's up to us. It's up to me, and it's up to you. The government's not going to save us here. The government doesn't even know the stuff that I shared with you. A lot of these studies are done by universities and nonprofits. So we're the change makers. We're the ones that have to make it happen. Yeah, Elizabeth?
Yeah, you took the words out of my mouth. I was thinking I was going to raise my hand next. It's up to us, and I'm the mother of 3 sons, and I've been teaching them from day one. You respect everybody equally. You don't think if they're a boy, you don't think if they're a girl. And the same thing goes to families who have daughters. I don't have a daughter, so I don't know what that's like. But it's all about education, teaching our boys to respect girls and respect boys equally, teaching our daughters to stand up for themselves. It's all a learning process, and if it doesn't start with the younger generations, we're just going to continue on this status quo line and never improve.
We talk a little bit about that. I think one thing that's really important to understand is our socialization is different, and some of that socialization comes from how our bodies and chemistry are different in our brains. If you think about how maybe a hyperactive little boy will be treated by his parents versus how a little girl will, versus a little girl, they're going to be treated completely differently because their behavior is completely different. And that's dictated by their bodies and their body chemistry and stuff. So some of this is involuntary, right? A lot of parents who make mistakes don't know they're making them. I'm teaching my daughter all the time about my granddaughter. Don't make her hug grandpa, right? You don't make your son, well, she didn't have a son, but this is my message. We don't make little boys hug. Don't make your little girl. So, especially if she's uncomfortable, right? Debbie has a question.
Yeah, I'm going to stand up. I just want to say I have been part of RILA, and I am back now as a alumni because you're able to do that. So one of the things I want to say is I'm 63 years old, and I've been in the man's world in a very strong business, and it was not easy, but it worked out, right? I made it work out, and I figured out how to do that. I thought I knew everything at 63. I am learning so much, even going back as an alumni. And we talk there and we share openly, and really, I'm learning more from the younger girls than my own daughters, because they're hungry to learn and they want to become something. They want to hand something down. And I think it's an excellent program. There's a lot of men in this room. If you got businesses, I'm telling you, you got to send your girls, because they're going to bring home nuggets that we may think you get from your wife or your daughter, but these girls are so sharp and they're so hungry and they're being very successful. And Lacy, thank you, because it was a great thing to bring to the city.
Thanks. Thank you. Okay, one more.
I have 2 girls and 2 boys, and I taught my girls from early, don't need a man, want a man. I've drilled that into them. And they're both successful in their careers, but it was a little bit of a challenge dating sometimes because men were a little bit insecure about their success.
Right. It happens. Those aren't the right men.
They were.
Yeah. Just remember, it's a win-win-win. It's a win for the women. It's a win for business. It's a win for our pocketbooks as taxpayers. So there's no downside to acting on some of this information. So thanks for all the questions. Great discussion. Okay, before we go, I just want to acknowledge someone. I was alluding to our staff turnover. 2 of our staff members had other excellent opportunities. One of them is Rose. Where's Rose? Come up here, Rose. Oops. Rose is a part-time professor at UCI, and she's going back to get her master's to become a full-time professor. And I've been doing nonprofit for a long time, and I've never, Rose was supposed to be gone 3 weeks ago. And I said, please, will you stay till the end of the month till these 2 major events are over? And she said, of course I will. And she has been dedicated in making sure the other 3 know what they're doing, making sure we have a good transition. And I just want to thank you so much for everything. And we have a big mixer tonight that she's in charge of, so thank you so much. We have a card from the team and a dinner at Fogo de Chão for your family. Do you want to say anything?